Hello everyone, welcome back for another book review. So today we are continuing along with the Sabbat Essentials. This one is Mabon. So if you've been following along, I've been talking about these starting at in bulk. We have moved all the way through, we're almost done with this. So a lot of this is kind of repeated from the previous books. What the Wheel of the Year is, and then it has the same exact layout every time. It tries to give you a little bit of everything. Ancient, modern, rituals, invocations, spells, recipes, like there's kind of just the variety of what you would probably need, and each one does it a little differently. There are only a handful that are repeats. I mean, there's not that many, there's 8. But like this author does this one and Samhain, which makes me nervous because I didn't love this one. So this book, I didn't actually notice this. Apparently I just didn't pay attention because I kind of thought I knew the Wheel of the Year. But this book focuses that Mabon is when the god in Wiccan traditions dies, and I was the whole time like, that's for Samhain, that's what Samhain is. What are you talking about? He's old and like not doing great at this point, but it's at Samhain that he dies. And then I started flipping through and all of them say the same thing. This is the dying god. And I'm like, what? And so I had to like make myself feel better. So I pulled out one of the major books that I learned from, which is this and her channel mostly, but also her book. And I'm glad I have this. I don't know if it's still in print, but it's the Simple Sabbat, Charming Pixie Flora on YouTube back in the day. And in here, Mabon is not when the god dies. It is at Samhain. And I don't know if that's like a common thing, because I haven't followed Wicca in so long, and I've learned many other traditions and everyone kind of does things so differently. But I'm like, I swear, this is when I was Wiccan, and no, it was Samhain. That's the harvest time, that's when the god dies, and it's all about death. This is the witch's Thanksgiving, which is what this book says. So anyways, I just had to confirm that for my own brain. But yeah, apparently all of them have mentioned that that's what this one's gonna be about, so that kind of threw me for a loop. But yeah, basically this is the book of the history. I didn't love it, honestly. It was really focused on just a couple different parts of the world, and it had a lot that, even in like the modern context too, in the New Ways section, that I was like, I don't care. This is not a book for these people, right? Because like, it has a lot of like, there was so much mention that Mabon is basically when Jesus dies. And I'm like, first of all, Wicca and witchcraft, not Christian witchcraft, first of all. Then there was mention of saints, and that it's St. Michael's, and it's like Michaelmas or something like that. And then it had a lot of mentions for like Jewish holidays going on right now, which is like, cool, I don't care. Like, in the nicest way possible, I don't care. I'm not trying to learn these religions. I'm not trying to do their thing. That's their thing. I'm here to learn about witchcraft and like probably Wicca, because that's what 90% of the books are. And she is a Wiccan priest, or priestess. But yeah, I didn't care, and it felt really weird to be like, well, Mabon is like basically Easter, and I'm like, but Easter is Easter. We know that, right? Like, Jesus dies, and then he comes back like 3 days later. That's why you have Good Friday, and then you have Easter Sunday. Like, you know, it's spring, not autumn. So that felt kind of weird, and like trying to just draw conclusions to things that it was like, why though? And it had a lot of emphasis on Greek mythology, which, to be fair, this time of the year a lot of people do focus on that. It was just kind of a letdown, because it did mention a heathen one. So briefly, I was like, what? How? What? And then I tried to look it up, and I was like, oh, that's a rabbit hole. Because it does technically have a name, which then makes me question the Asatru book that I just read, because the Asatru book did not say that it was the like winter findings or something plot, and so that's apparently a thing, and so it just requires so much to look up. But yeah, it didn't go any further than that really, and I was kind of disappointed, because I was like, oh, you talked about it. Oh, that was it. That was all. Because it really just focused on Persephone and, well, she didn't call him Hades, she called him Pluto, but kind of the same deal. And just, I'm like, I know there's a lot more for that pantheon than a lot of the other ones, and a little bit of Celtic, and it was, I don't know, I wanted it to not be about that, because I'm like, I don't I don't do that tradition. Then, like, the recipes were uberly weird. Some of them were fine, but, like, I looked up, like, the green bean casserole, because that's what I'm making, and I'm like, I've never heard of making it this way. In what universe ever have you put, like, tomato soup or yogurt into a green bean casserole? The yogurt I could kind of be like, well, let me give it, like, a little bit more cream, I guess-ish. I don't know why we're not doing cream of whatever, but no, tomato soup or yogurt. And I'm like, what? And then it has like really weird seasonings that normally you don't add. And it does, like, I don't know if it's like a cultural thing, like maybe even across the United States we cook it differently. But yeah, because I think she's in California. That's not the green bean casserole I've grown up on at all. It's like cream of mushrooms, and then you just mix it with your green beans, and then you put the like crispy onion thingy on top that they sell at Thanksgiving every year. They do sell it all year round, but you have to kind of hunt for it. And then you bake it, and sometimes you add cheese. And that's it. It's really not that hard of a recipe. But this was like adding paprika, and it was weird. So I didn't know about that. So it kind of made me question the other recipes. The rituals were kind of weird, and some of the activities and stuff I didn't love. And I've read some other reviews and I kind of agree, because there was one that it's like, to have your children banging loudly and singing and walking around your garden and your house. And some of the reviews were like, I would hate that as a neighbor, as a witch, but as a neighbor, like, no. Like, I could kind of appreciate that. I don't love when our neighborhood kids are super duper loud, because it's just obnoxious and they just screech all the time and make very loud noise. And we go to bed very early because we get up very early, so it's really annoying. So I could kind of give them some credit for that. It does feel like this is trying to aim a little bit more towards like a kid-friendly celebration for a lot of it. It did have a huge emphasis on community, which is fine. I did find it interesting that it talked about pagan pride though, that it was supposed to be around this time of the year, because I didn't know that at all. I just was like, oh, that's when they picked it, because we're finally past like the heat of summer, but it's not quite winter yet here in Utah. And some of them are kind of around that time. Some of them are in like the end of August. Some are the beginning of October. So it was just kind of all over the place. I mean, we haven't had ours for a number of years. I don't know if it's ever coming back, honestly. But that was kind of cool to learn about. The rituals were like, meh. Like the solitary one, I didn't like how she kind of set up the ritual. It almost sounded like it sucks to be solitary for you, I guess. And I'm like, and that the gods, like, you have to actually speak the words because they won't hear you. And I'm like, no, like, no. Like, it's super rare that I actually will sit down and out loudly to speak to the gods. I'm usually quiet to myself, like barely above a whisper at most. So that was kind of weird. And the couples ritual was even weirder. Like, it doesn't explain why you're doing stuff, which I need. Tell me why I'm doing the thing I'm doing, because then I need to decide if I like that or not. Like, the reason behind it. Because it's like, you do this ritual where, like, you shower, and then you set up your space, and then you have to wash your partner's hands and feet. I don't like my husband's feet. They're disgusting. I love him. Don't love his feet. So that always is like, why, though? Why? Why? And, like, it doesn't really explain why, and I just immediately am like, no. Because, like, also, if we both just showered, what is the point? And it doesn't really say it. There's no words to go with it, or, like, anything. It's just like, do this thing, for whatever reason, which is weird. And then you're supposed to feed each other and, like, pour each other drinks and whatever, and I was just kind of like, why, though? There's so many other options. And, like, why are we doing it at, like, this time of the year? It just felt really weird. Like, I get being grateful, and it's like you're supposed to write, like, this heartfelt message to your partner. And I didn't love it. And the group ritual just felt very staged, is one way another review put it. And I was like, yeah, it does. It feels really weird. Because, like, you're basically holding a funeral with, like, a scarecrow. And it was a lot. I don't know that I would appreciate that, because I have gone to a Mabon celebration, and yeah, wasn't that awkward. It just, I don't know. The rituals, I didn't love them. Any of them, actually. The only thing I really liked from this one, and other people have gotten a lot from this book, so I think it's a me problem, The only thing I kind of enjoyed was the fact that it talked about the dark night of the soul, which, on the mentionings of it to begin with, felt kind of weird because there's just better ways to maybe set that up, not with a Christian context, but whatever. With that section, she talks about how basically it's not always easy to be grateful because sometimes life sucks. And I really appreciated that because, yeah, sometimes life really sucks and it's really hard to be grateful. And there's been points in my life where that would have been a great one to use, because when you can't afford anything and you've been fired from a job, you've lost a loved one, you're struggling immensely, it's really hard to be like, I'm grateful during the season of this harvest. Like, I don't care. Like, no. And so that kind of poem invocation kind of thing, I did like that because I feel like that would be very appropriate at different points in other people's lives. Everyone handles bad things in life differently, and sometimes it's not easy to always look on the bright side and look for the good, because like sometimes a death can happen and you're like, oh well, they're with the gods in whatever form and you're good. That's the end of that story. And then other times it wreaks havoc on your life and you question the existence of the gods, you question what's the meaning of life, and it can really derail you. And especially if you deal with mental illness, like sometimes that takes over and you're like, you know what is the point? I'm lighting candles and I'm lighting incense, and like you don't have the magical feeling behind it anymore. And so this poem invocation thing, I feel like that actually kind of captured that feeling very well, which you don't see very often. The rest of this book was like meh, and I think honestly it's because I am not Wiccan, and a lot of this was just like, to me. I think other people would really enjoy it. I think the reason I don't like this is a me problem. I don't think every reader is gonna hate this, because for the most part this does have really good reviews, and there's like just a couple things that it's like, you know, some, like I was comparing other reviewers to be like, am I like alone in this? And for the most part I was. But like there was like the things of like some people get really uppity if you use other traditions things, like if you use smudging or like the mojo bags, which is more of like a hoodoo tradition, and without like the context around it and like really explaining things, which I can kind of give some credit to. You should know the stuff before you are doing it, like where it comes from, and like kind of try to know a little bit about it before just like gung-ho jumping in. But then also like some things, like it's a conversation to be had, but it's not one that I'm usually like super like, oh, we gotta worry about this. Other people are doing the good fight for that. But for the most part, everyone really loved it. They were happy about the correspondences and like whatever. So I think it's just a me. I just think I personally didn't love this book. You might though, you know, especially if you are really into Greek mythology or really into community and stuff, or you have kids and like a big coven. This book is probably going to be great for you. So anyways, I would love to say that I have more positive things to say. Honestly, I'm just kind of meh about it. Like, I don't hate it. It just wasn't anything really spectacular for me. And because my witchcraft tradition started with the teachings from here, and this is not when the god dies, this really kind of messed me up a bit. Of like, the whole time I'm like, I just kept questioning it, and like, then I try and Google it, and like, for once Google was not helpful, and I'm like, I don't want to have to sit through a long video multiple times over to be like, do other people do this? Is this like a thing? Did I like totally forgot that like this was a thing that happened? Because seriously, I swear, Mabon has always been like he's dying, but the death happens at Samhain. That's why we have all the death imagery. And so anyways, I've never loved the Wiccan Wheel of the Year to begin with, so that's probably why. But yeah, anyways, I don't know. I was just kind of meh for this one. If you're a beginner, you will probably enjoy getting to know some things about this. I would also recommend you continue your research. I know there's an author that's out of print that had a series on the Sabbats as well. Eventually I want to get those, unless they're like horribly expensive, because I've heard that the pricing varies and sometimes it's like, oof. And so it might be a while till I afford those, but they had a different series, and so I'd like to learn another Sabbat series to just like kind of compare, because I don't know, I just, again, meh. I would love to hear your thoughts though. Did you like this one? Is it the me thing that it just doesn't do it for me? Because again, I think it's the me problem. I don't think everyone else is gonna hate this. I think I just personally was just not digging it this time. So anyways, that is going to be it for this book review. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. Do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day. Huge thank you to my patron. I'll have their name somewhere over here. If you want to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.